Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Hey, whoa. Coffee Experts Club. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Good, yeah. Drew made a run for it, avoiding the tropical thunder, all the tropics and the rain. Everybody always thinks Belize and they're like, man, it must be so magical. Just sunshine and breeze and sea air every single day until you come up against black sky, Drew, and you're like, dear God, am I going to make it home in time?
So I guess I was telling them I saw the night sky on the horizon approaching, so I had to hop on my bike and ride home fast.
It is nice that you can at least like see it coming, so you're like, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Man, I mean,
it's roomy.
I know it's not always ideal to like bike home, but that's like, dude, bro, that's a pretty like romantic life. And I know it probably sounds romantic on this side to people that are thinking about driving 25 minutes to work and 25 minutes back home and fighting traffic and flipping people off and yelling at people as they're trying to get through the lanes. You know what I mean? And to think, wow, Drew gets to ride his bike there and ride his bike back. So Drew rides his bike there. He's like, hey, how are things going? Check in with everybody. They think that in their mind. They don't realize you're underneath the bar, like installing like surge protectors and then riding back.
Well, all the golf carts are open, so the flipping off and the cursing can still happen.
You just reach over and smack the guy you're mad at.
More intimate, yeah.
Just I love it. Well, hey, we talked about me and Ben chit-chatting as you were trying to beat the storm. We were talking about how probably a great part two to last week's session on how do we elevate the owner out of the day-to-day tasks, maybe giving them some practical wheels on how to do it. Cause I think that most owners think, well, I just need to find a manager. But all that really does for you is you just dump all your shit straight on one other person. And then they're just as stressed as you've been feeling. You know what I mean? So how can you really break out what is the hierarchy within stands? Like how can you create positions that create certain kind of ownerships? And then how can you compensate people? Because I'm not sure it always has to do with money, especially in the current generation that we're in right now. How can you think about perks that speak the language of your people that want to help them think through ascending into your different hierarchy within the stands?
Yeah, that's a great point. If you just get, a random kid manager in there and you just dump all your stuff on him, all you're doing is you're dumping the tasks on them, but you're increasing the amount of text messages you're going to get throughout the day. So it's like, are you really that much better off?
And you, right. And you just like, so you hated your life when you were doing it and you just passed that hate for the life down on. I mean, it's like, how can you help them think through, should this, and maybe that's the challenge, right? Is what kinds of things should you as the owner be doing? Right. Maybe you start there. And I think we talk about it all the time. Delegate, Elevate's a great tool we use of 4 different quadrants. What do you love and are great at? What do you like and you're good at? What do you not like, but you can't deny you're still good at it? And what do you dislike and you're not good at it? Like breaking down the different things you're doing in the day to day. And then how can you elevate up by delegating down? And then so some of those things you create, but it's not like just a shit storm where you just like shit rolls downhill and it's just like everything goes on to the manager now that you don't want to do. It's like, okay, so what kinds of things would a manager do? And then what kinds of things would an assistant manager do? And, we've talked, Jarek at Swig is a great dude. Somebody we all respect, came out of the Roasters days with all of us. So it feels like just a blood brother of arms, through some fun times back in the Roasters days and some not so fun times. But we've taught like Jarek's dichotomy, which I think is really good. And is some of the things that we learned back in the Roasters days as well of like managers handle the people part and the assistant managers handle the task oriented duties. And I know Drew, you have some sentiment on maybe some of the practicalities where that breaks down. I'd love to push and pull on that a little bit because I think that that can help people, owners, if you're listening. So if you're tuning in for the first time, this is a great spot to come in and like, just think through, let's challenge everything that you think about coffee. And before you get started in your first stand or before you start expanding in your first stand, let us help you frame some of this stuff up. We give out free tools here. Check out coffeeexpertsacademy.com. I think that's something that we offer consistently to folks, 35 episodes of deep dives in all of these topics. But let's talk today, guys, about the hierarchy and how we can see that frame out.
Yeah, I think the way that we did it, that we came to do it in the past, and I think the way that Jarek and Swig have kind of taken and run with was we started off in the beginning where it was manager does everything. I mean, that's just kind of where you start, just as a practical standpoint of what you would think a manager does. Okay, we've got baristas and I've got a manager. So we got the guy who's leading charge of the place. He does all the important stuff. Puts together the dry goods order, puts together the schedule, puts together the cleaning routine, does the check-ins with the employees, opens the shop, all that sort of stuff. That was just kind of like what we decided by default. And towards I think later half of Roasters, what we realized is like you just said, that's a lot of crap for one person to do, especially when that person is coming in at 4:45 in the morning, opening the store, and they're out of there by noon or 1 o'clock. Like, that's a lot of crap for one person to do in a short amount of time, especially on top of the fact that most coffee shops, the manager works on bar.
That's right.
So they're a barista for 5 hours, 6 hours of the day, and then they're admin for like 45 minutes. And you're like, do all the things that make the shop run. So I think just from a logistics standpoint, we realized that we needed to break down those responsibilities to the assistant manager as well, and raise up assistant managers. That for us, it started with, okay, the assistant manager handles the dry goods ordering, with the manager approving it before it's sent, before it's ordered. Jarek took that a step further with, the assistant managers are writing the schedules. And then I remember when he first said that, I was like, what the hell? You're having the assistant write the schedule? I was like, that's insane. But I mean, again, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're delegating down duties that the only reason we say the manager has to do it is because we've always said the manager has to do it. Like, why don't you just let somebody else do it? The manager comes in and approves. And then when you open up another shop, you've got an assistant who can be raised up to be a manager that knows how to schedule. Like, it just makes sense that the manager is in charge of the front of house, essentially, is what we're talking about. Like, you have a front of house and a back of house. To use terms from the bar industry, we've got a new bar client that I'm working with, so I'm going to be talking in bar speak all the time. But they have a front of house manager and a back of house manager. Front of house manager, it manages the people, the customers, what the customers see, everything front of house. And then you have a back of house manager who's running, all of the admin tasks. I think it works out pretty well. I don't know, Drew, you could tell me if I'm completely wrong in that sense.
Well, I mean, splitting up the duties, I think, is really smart. It's what I think what my pushback against some of these ideas would be, what those duties really are. And depending on it, maybe where you're at in the US or what industry you're in, obviously we do coffee, you're going to struggle with different things. If you're struggling with your inventory, or you're struggling with your staffing, or you're struggling, maybe you have plenty of staff, but your baristas aren't motivated to actually do the work very well, all the way up from the little guy up to Starbucks. I'm sure, from us on the outside, it looks awesome, looks great, looks smooth. They're dealing with their own, monsters. And so for our case specifically, one thing we were talking about is inventory is kind of a big deal for us, just because we're so far from our suppliers.
Yeah.
And so one of my pushbacks was, inventory is super important. Like, we've been out of a important product for about 3 or 4 days now, just because of miscommunication, because we had somebody in charge who didn't communicate properly. And so, going back to the scheduling aspect, we had our assistants write the schedule because it's easier, in my opinion, for a manager to look over a schedule and say, that's great, than it is for a manager to be like, well, I think your numbers on inventory are fine because it looks fine on the spreadsheet, but I didn't actually do any of the counting. You know what I mean? So in breaking down your tasks and what your managers are going to be in charge of, I think it's important to look at, your specific monsters. And you're going to know if you did the work initially. It's going to be different maybe for franchisees, but people who, started their business, worked from the ground up, got their vendors, hired their baristas, trained everybody, service their equipment. You're going to know what monsters you're going to be dealing with. And I think delegating according to that strategy is probably, for us, would be the best way to go, because in my opinion, the manager should be the most capable and probably where the fault is going to lie and where the systems can be created. If we put them in that correct place, they're going to help us create those systems.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there. I think that, yeah. So what we're suggesting is managers handle the people, which means like all the employee issues, like all the customer issues, right? Watching your flow. I know for Swig, he doesn't have the managers open, right? Benny has him come in kind of mid opening shift and then work so that he sees the crossover on the handoff of shift change. You know what I mean? I think so. Like they can see how's the flow, how are things working? And then Drew, I think to your point, if you do still push down to assistants to do all of the admin style tasks, all of the duties like that, that when things go sideways, then you as the owner still like your throat to choke, right? The one throat to choke, EOS one throat to choke, like is the manager, hey man, what's going on with inventory? Oh, well, the assistant's been handling that. Well, I need you, like you just did today, you called the audible, Drew, of, hey, well, manager number one, I need you to sit in on all the stock meetings for the next foreseeable future because your assistant isn't dialing that in. You know what I mean? So I need you, you're the one throat to choke. You manage down your people. If your assistant is not carrying it well, then I'm going to expect you to lean in on that. And then once you've got that back under control, I'm fine if you step back out. But if there's a problem, like the problem is with your management, not with the people you're managing, because you're the one that I'm going to expect. So I do think there's an expectation of still the managers at the top, they're just going to task down things because they probably can't do everything great. And so let's task down the things that could be tasked down, which is usually admin style duties. It teaches the assistant. And then the hope would be like what we just did, Drew, for opening up our third location. We pulled the assistant out of location number 2, made her a manager at location number 3 because she understood all the systems from that whole time of doing systems. Now she elevates up, tasks down those systems to her assistant, but she knows what goes into those systems and can manage that person who is probably new to these admin systems. So I think that what you're creating hopefully is an elevation scheme where people are able to continue to elevate up, delegate down, but they understand everything that's underneath their hand as a manager.
I think the one thing I would, all of these are great examples of what you would want to delegate down as a manager to assistant. I think the main most important thing that I wouldn't would be anything employee relations. Obviously you don't want your assistant going in and writing people up. You don't want your assistant sitting down doing reviews. I think that's something that should sit with the manager. But outside of that, I think, yeah, like what you're saying, if we can give the assistant more responsibilities and give them more tools and give them more ways to learn how the business works, then it's not like that inevitable scramble, like, oh my God, who's going to manage our shop? Well, if we've got 3 shops, we've got 3 great possible managers for the 4th one, and so on and so on. It keeps, like you said, feeding itself into management.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Drew, I know you're going to push back on some of that. Push back, and then let's talk about perks.
I think ideally, in an ideal world, this is going to work perfectly. And obviously we're all working towards that. And it really depends on your goals for your business, right? For me personally, my goal is for us as owner operators would probably be to focus on growth, and cultivation. And we're in the cultivation stage. And that's why we have these types of conversations. We're working towards the ideal, and I would love for it to function that way, but there's going to be steps in between, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Right. And so let's acknowledge that. So I think all of us should be trying to reach the goal, but you better know what the goal is. Otherwise, like if you don't have a map, you're always lost, right? Like if we don't know where we're going, we're just always wandering, right? And we're chasing after the next thing on fire, which is freaking exhausting, right? So it's like, okay, so this is at like highest value. This is what we're shooting towards. And we're on our way there. And sometimes we have to take a couple steps back and sometimes it's not perfect, but this is what we're aspiring to. so that we know what we're all attaining to, and so we can begin to call people up. Like Drew, you and I said to have a sit down with one of our managers and say, hey, listen, you're not performing to standard. So we want you here, but this is the standard and this is what you're failing in. And this is what we want to see you grow in. And I think that that's not a bad conversation. This is the ideal. We need to help you get there. And I think that, we've talked about how do you incentivize people? And I think it's a really important thing for Gen X and for those younger than Gen X who maybe have ascended to a place of ownership now, that realize the next couple of generations down don't value the same kind of things that you valued. Like money isn't always going to move people. So really like honing in on, if I'm going to ask somebody into a much more stressful life, right? Management is a more stressful life, but a lot of people were built to manage. Drew, like you would have been miserable a barista all of your life. Like you were meant to ascend. When you were given opportunities to ascend, you took them. Same thing with you, Benji. You know what I mean? Benji, the party boy that Fawn ascended up to the point where you're COO of Roasters and overseeing 150, 200 employees. Like you would have been miserable, always stuck just slinging coffee, but you guys started there and then opportunities were afforded to you. But I think a lot of it is, how can we incentivize that? And it's not always going to be through pay. So those of you listening, you're thinking, well, I can't afford to give a bunch of people a bunch more money. I would think through, what are perks that could benefit them? Like, so Drew and I put together a whole scale of how we're rolling out with managers. And we just have been rolling it out this last quarter. So we haven't perfected it, but the things that we had dreamed up and imagined was, in Belize, like it's a third world country. There's a lot of like things that happen in these places that are pretty crazy compared to what we go up against here in the States. And so what we thought was, hey, what if we offered therapy? Like we'll pay for a certain amount of sessions for people to be able just to sit down with professionals and work through some of the hard stuff they're going through, because they don't have a lot of that, right? They don't have a lot of that there, or they couldn't afford it. That's not attainable. So what if we took on the cost of sending them to that? And it's just our managers, and it's just the management people that we've selected, and that's not going to equate to a bunch of dollars in consistent hourly pay. That's an increase, right? So it's something that's like a spot that we're investing a spot, and as they use it, we pay for it, right? But it incentivizes them to better. We also thought about, what if we paid for half of their gym membership? Hey, we encourage you to do something athletic, do something that's going to get the endorphins released. Let's get fresh blood pumped through your heart. That's going to make you feel better, think better. It's going to make you feel better about your appearance. Like, let's get you in there, but we're not going to pay for the whole thing, because you don't want to just pay for something that you're not going to use. But if you're willing to go, we'll pay for half of that. We also talked about, hey, what if we matched their vacation? Like, what if it's like, hey, you get this much on vacation, we'll pay for half of wherever you go. Like, we'll match it, but it only is if you go somewhere, right? We're not going to just give you more money. You want to use that to go somewhere, and we'll match whatever you're paying for wherever you want to go next. So it inspires them to broaden their minds. I mean, let's go see other places. Let's get away from the daily grind. Like, what are perks that you could offer that are maybe one-time spends, that would incentivize your people and say, hey, we see you, we want to help you grow, but it's not necessarily a dollar amount that we're going to attach to a title that increases you. It's a perk that comes with and inspires people to want to take more leadership.
And like just getting creative alone will help you stand out. I mean, let's just talk brass tacks. If you're creative with your perk package, that helps you stand out in comparison to other companies that, a potential employee might be looking at. I could go work at Starbucks and get my health benefits at 22. I don't give a crap about those, because what 22-year-old cares about a health benefits package? But I mean, if you're matching my vacation, well, that seems cool. I might be interested in that. At 23, I didn't care one bit if I had, my dental and eye covered by my health insurance plan. Like, this was not a care of mine. So if you can get creative and take those perks and meet them where your barista demographic is at, it just sweetens the pot that much more. I think here in the US, employers and companies rely too much on the health, vision, and dental. Don't you want to work here? You get health, vision, and dental. Like, cool, man. Maybe when I'm in my 30s, that might matter to me. But right now, I'm just trying to like go to a festival this summer.
Right.
Like you just mentioned, there's some like state, and government benefits that can be provided at certain jobs. And one of them that was provided here was 2 weeks. They get 2 weeks vacation if they work a year for you, which is sweet. That's a sweet deal.
Wow, that's nice.
Every employee, it doesn't matter if they're management or not. So one thing we rolled out, it expires after 6 months. So let's say you're hired in January. Next January, you get your 2 weeks. It expires in July or whatever. But we're going to roll that out for a full year for our managers, so they're not all rushing to take a vacation the first 6 months. which is, pretty sweet. And who's going to be your biggest cheerleader in your stores, or who do you want to be, like this, the image of what you would like for your employees to be? Because ideally, in a conscious business environment, you don't want your employees to suffer. You don't want to be taking advantage of them. You don't want them to worry about paying their bills. You don't want them to, because that creates a desperation in their mind, and they're not going to lead very well. Our managers are our biggest supporters, and we're going to be their biggest supporters. We want them to have space to have critical thinking. We want them to sit back and really look at the business and how they can better it. And some of these perks that we're giving them, I like to think would provide that little bit of extra space, so they're not worried about, making rent this month, because they're not going to take good care of the store because they're worried about other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's be honest. You also don't want to create that environment where it's like they're dependent on you. Like if it is just all cash and, hey, if you stay here longer, I'll give you a few extra bucks. If you stay here longer, then you can't leave because I'm paying you too high compared to everywhere else. We've seen a lot of places where their employees are like, I'd love to leave. I hate working here, but I can't afford to. I'm stuck here. Like that's not a great environment either. So maybe we take the dollar bills out of it and say, hey, you can. I'm not going to chain you with golden handcuffs to this business. You're free to go as you will, and not feel like you're gonna, not have rent paid when you leave.
Yeah. And I think Drew and I have talked through a lot of different things of, the beauty about having an independent coffee is that you can do things independently, right? You don't have to do everything everybody else is doing, and even just talking about like attainable franchising. Like I know that was Dutch Bro's model early on. I think that if somebody is dedicated to you for a certain number of years, you give them a more approachable opportunity to make it their own and to make money off it, like you've been making money off of it. Right. So and there's probably nobody that's going to do a franchise as well as somebody that's you've poured into for the last 5 years. You know what I mean? And then that way they're able to ascend and make a goal. I know, Drew, that was you, right? You were socking money away because Wes had promised you could be the first franchisee, And so now I know that's a little bit of a sore subject these days, but you've gone on to do your own business now. But I think that you were a great example of, you guys were just socking it away, socking it away so that you could come up with that attainable franchise opportunity as somebody that had put in time as a manager and a regional manager. And now you're going to become a franchisee. And I think that's a powerful model.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned, those people are going to take good care of that business because, they were loyal to the business when it wasn't theirs, and suddenly it's going to be theirs. And that's a nice, a cool road. Because in the end, I think we all kind of want to be financially independent. We don't want to be reliant on a paycheck constantly or worried about not spending all our money before the next check comes in. And so, all of these things that we've been talking about kind of provides that platform for young people. And it, in the current economic climate, I think it seems less and less attainable. So you as a business owner are almost in a position to kind of provide something that people don't expect, opportunity that seems unrealistic. And if you have the extra margin, I would suggest investing in definitely your leadership, and that will trickle down in the way that they're treating their people, treating the stores, and treating the customers.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, good talk today, boys. Coffee experts. I hope that you guys got something out of that. Once again, these ideas are meant to inspire you to come up with your own ideas. If you have thoughts you want to run by us, hit us up on any of our social medias, DM us. We'll get back to you on those. If you want any of the tools we talked about, we'd love to get those over to you as well. Just hit us up on any of the socials that you see this on, and we'll see you coffee experts back here next week on Coffee Experts Club. Thank you, boys.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir. See ya.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.